If you've been following F1, you definitely would have heard the name Bernie Ecclestone. The 91-year-old British billionaire sold F1 rights to Liberty Media for a whopping $4.6 billion. Before that, he was the part owner and chief executive of the sport. Since its sale 5 years ago, Ecclestone has managed to stay low-key. He was barely in the news until now. Today, we brought you some concerning news coming from his end. Let's jump right into it. First up, Bernie Ecclestone was arrested in Brazil for having an unregistered weapon in his luggage. The former F1 chief was arrested recently in Brazil for carrying unregistered weapons. He was arrested directly at the airport when security found an unlicensed gun in his luggage. However, being as rich and influential as he is, he was recently shortly on bail, according to the media and the Brazilian police. According to the local media, the 91-year-old British business magnate was detained at the Viracopos International Airport, right outside of Sao Paulo. At first, the police didn't confirm his arrest. They just claimed that an unnamed businessman had been detained after airport security agents found a .32 caliber LWC camp pistol in his luggage during a security check. The gun, however, wasn't loaded and it didn't have a magazine. But then security officials in Brazil notified that it was indeed Bernie Ecclestone who was arrested. Brazilian police stated that federal agents brought the man in for questioning. He was charged with carrying a firearm in contravention of the law. Ecclestone was flying to Switzerland from Brazil, where he moved after being ousted as the F1 chief in 2017. He's currently married to a Brazilian model, Fabiana Ecclestone, and that's why he was in Brazil. Will he face consequences, though? Well, this is where it gets a little tricky. As we speak, Bernie Ecclestone is out on bail. He paid approximately $1,500 to seek bail from the Brazilian police. However, if he's convicted, he'll face a prison term of up to 4 years. But viewers, we all know the story. He's a billionaire. There's no way he'll ever serve 4 years in a Brazilian prison. He's 91. He has told the police that he was unaware that the gun was in his luggage. He claims that he bought it about 5 years ago from a mechanic at F1. Looks like this will be his defense if the case goes to trial. He has acknowledged that he owns the gun, but claims to be fully unaware that it was in his luggage. According to him, though, he wasn't arrested, but rather just questioned. He describes his time being investigated as just spending some time with the cops. Let's hope it's all as light and breezy as the former chief wants us to believe it is. How you get a freaking gun in your luggage by accident, though, it's truly stumped us all. So, is he a bit of a bad boy? Folks, this isn't the first time the silver-haired Ecclestone has been on the wrong side of the law. Alright, so Ecclestone pulled off the largest tax dodge in UK's history and surprisingly got away with it without a scratch despite being investigated thoroughly. Ecclestone wanted to transfer the F1's TV rights to his family's trust. If he'd done that conventionally, he would have ended up paying close to $2 billion in tax. That's a lot of tax dollars. So being the genius that he is, he opened up an offshore company under his wife's name. The TV rights were then transferred to his wife as a gift. Transferring an asset as a gift essentially means you won't have to pay hefty tax, if any, on it. So once the asset was under his wife's name, she transferred it to his family trust in Liechtenstein, a tax haven. If there was a bank heist stealing $2 billion from the British State Bank, the criminals would still be rotting in jail. But Ecclestone got out of it scot-free. How did he do it? Well, there's a controversy behind it too. He's been accused of bribing a German banker with $25 million for him to hide their offshore company. After that, though, there was no more news coverage of the incident. Should we feel bad for him, though? Ecclestone may be facing prison, but he's no saint. He's also been accused of racism and sexism. In fact, in the following months after the murder of George Floyd, the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton launched a commission to increase diversity and tackle racism in Formula One. His initiative was called We Race as One and was overall well received by the public. However, Ecclestone wasn't happy and stated, "In a lot of cases, black people are more racist than what white people are." He was called ignorant and uneducated by Hamilton and his fans. If you thought that was all, there's more. He has also been accused of sexism a few years ago when he said that women drivers are just not strong enough to be racers for F1 and said that F1 with women wouldn't be interesting and no one would watch it. So he might be facing a few years in prison, but people overall aren't too upset about it. This event isn't even creating as much noise as it would have a few years ago. Looks like Ecclestone's reign is over. Now let's move on to some more exciting news coming from the world of Formula One. Next, in other news, F1 under Liberty Media. Bernie Ecclestone had extremely conservative views when it came to the sport. He believed that there was no need for younger fans in the sport because they couldn't afford to buy the brands that sponsored the F1 anyway, for example, Rolex. He also didn't believe in the use of social media either. Ecclestone's views not only stopped the F1 from growing, but they caused viewership to decline. Then in 2016, Liberty Media came in million and purchased F1 from Ecclestone for $4.6 billion. Since then, the company has completely revamped the sport to increase profits and viewership. They achieved this by targeting two key untapped demographics: young people and Americans. On top of that, the folks over at Liberty had the genius idea to have a dramatic docuseries on the sport, giving viewers exclusive, intimate access to the people in one of the world's greatest racing competitions. And who did they get to do the whole docuseries? Netflix. They decided to call this thriller F1 Drive to Survive, and it just absolutely skyrocketed the sport's popularity globally. And now, Leclerc is feeling more than frustrated. This weekend was the exciting Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Red Bull finished with a 1-2 finish, with Verstappen being in the first and Checo being in the second position. However, the weekend wasn't that glorious for this year's second favorite, Ferrari. At first, Carlos Sainz's car started releasing smoke and had to be retired. Then Leclerc had a power unit issue which also forced him to retire. Two did not finish versus Red Bull's 1-2 finish must have stung Ferrari. Not to put salt on Leclerc's wounds for anything, but Leclerc had the fastest qualifying lap, which put him in pole position. Here's a fun fact though: Max Verstappen has won more races from Leclerc's pole than Leclerc has. Ouch! Sainz and Leclerc believe that the car is having reliability problems and they need to be addressed. Next up, Hamilton has trouble getting out of his car. The new set of FIA regulations means that F1 cars' ride heights are now lower than before. This is causing a big problem for the drivers though, because this means that the cars now bounce on circuits. Before you start thinking, but what's the big deal? Remember, racers are sitting on a hard piece of carbon fiber, not a cushioned seat like we do. The intense speeds, sharp corners, and hard seats mean that these new regulations are causing harm to the racers. One of the racers to whom most harm is being caused is Lewis Hamilton. He's also older than the majority of the racers on the grid. So much so that after the Baku GP, Hamilton was in so much pain that he was having trouble getting out of the car. However, if Mercedes increased the ride height of their vehicle, then that would mean that their car isn't competitive on the track anymore and will let other cars pass through on the straights. So going into Canada, Mercedes now has a choice to make: Hamilton's health or more points. Finally, Max Verstappen not happy with salary cap. The FIA is considering capping the salaries of Formula One drivers. As of right now, it's not sure how much they're planning to cap salaries by. We're not even sure if they'll go through with it. But one racer on the grid is alarmed and pissed: Max Verstappen. He believes that the salary cap will be unfair. The reigning world champion also believes that this is going to hurt the young driver development program. He believes that franchises may not want to invest in them early on, or people might also be discouraged to join F1. He believes that drivers play an extremely important role in increasing the value of teams, so capping their salaries would mean living in an upside-down world. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Do you think Ecclestone will end up in jail, or will it just blow over like it usually does? Let us know all your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. See you guys next time. Bye!